to the ONOG Summer Circuit Feature Tournament number 3, Group B. I'm Monk, and joined with me is Hotform. We had a pretty exciting cast yesterday. Hotform, how are you doing today? What do you think about the cast?
Good. I mean, I kind of wish that I had seen Osaka get through, being my teammate and all from yesterday. But I think Firebat and Suki Fan definitely earned their spot after quite a few games yesterday. So should be nice. Today we get to see the other side of the bracket, see which of these guys will get matched up against those two in the semifinals and finals tomorrow.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed yesterday's games, particularly because we got to see a lot of Suki-pan, and we got to see like how strong he was. I definitely
Yep.
think even though Firebat and Osaka were in the group, I think possibly Suki-pan, he played the best out of all 4 players, so he definitely deserves moving on to the playoff stage, which will be held tomorrow. But you know what? Before we get off to the playoff stage, we have Group B, and to kick it off, we're gonna have Nostam versus Irony.
Yeah, I'm a little sad to see both of these guys brought a warrior. And actually, I should have checked to see if everybody playing today brought a warrior, because we did see 4 warriors yesterday. Every single person brought one. I mean, it looks like their lineups are pretty similar here.
I think the lineups are actually slightly off here. Nostam is gonna be bringing Hunter, Rogue, and Shaman, while
Ooh,
Irony is Hunter, Rogue, and Warrior. So it's just Nostam is playing Rogue and Shaman instead of Warlock and Warrior.
that's good. Well, then I take back what I said about there being a few too many warriors.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday we saw 4 Patron Warriors, a couple of Hunters, a couple of Druids, very, very standard lineups. The only difference being Firebat bringing a Freeze Mage and Osaka bringing a Rogue, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was super standard.
Yeah, so just going on a bit about these players, Nostam, he's known on the NA scene for Mech Shaman. He qualified for a feature tournament number 1 earlier, the same one you were in for Hot Form, I believe.
Yep.
And just recently, there was a Korean Mech Shaman list that found its way to the NA server, and Nostam is one of those players who grinds that list out on ladder a lot. And from him, players like Firebat, for example, they got Mech Shaman, and it just like spread like wildfire on the NA server. So we can definitely expect a lot of Mech Shaman from Nostam.
Yeah, I actually talked to Nostam about that list, and it's a very like aggressive mech shaman with just a lot of burst damage, but it does work really well, especially in the tournament setting where people are playing often like a mid-rangey type of deck, and it just punishes them so hard in the early game and then follows up with unstoppable damage for the most part.
Yeah. And of course, Nostam, yet again, will be playing for GNC, the Grand National Champions, more commonly known as KC Tron's team. So
Yep.
definitely, definitely an interesting team we got there. On the other hand, we have Irony. Irony, he's very, very unknown, and he's actually a Korean player that just happened to qualify for our tournament. Not only is he a Korean player, but he's also a rather unknown Korean player. He's not on like a major team, such as the one that 6-0 is staying with, the Ku All Stars, I believe. So kind of like an up and comer, not only in the Western scene but also the Korean scene.
Yeah. I mean, it should be a pretty good match. They both brought Hunter and Rogue, which is a little unusual. I mean, the Hunter's pretty common, but the way these classes match up against each other, it should lead to some interesting games, at least to start. And then the next set of games, we have Trump versus Powder, which should also be a really good series. So I look forward to the
Yeah.
games today a lot.
Yeah, we definitely want to talk about that match as well. Trump and Powder obviously are the 2 more well-known names, and both of those players are pretty much on fire lately. Trump winning 2 consecutive tournaments, both the HGC Reach Charge tournament and also Vulcan All-Stars, I believe. And
Yeah.
Powder, he recently got 2nd in Assembly, which was just held over the last weekend. He recently left his team Trig, so he's definitely going to be wanting to make a name for himself in hopes of finding a new team.
Yeah, he's played in these ONOG qualifiers before. He's made it quite far. I remember casting him on a previous occasion. So he's someone that's proven himself quite a bit in these like open formats to make it through all the brackets. Should be a strong contender.
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting is both Group A, which we casted yesterday, and Group B, they kind of follow similar patterns. Group A, they both have an American invite, Trump versus Firebat. They both have a Swedish player who qualified off of GEICO points, Osaka and Powder, and they have two of the more unknown players who went through a very tough open qualifiers, I have to say.
Yeah.
So if the trend follows, we probably will see one of these open players plus Trump advancing to the next stage. But who knows? Especially when we see Hunter versus Hunter in the first match.
We don't know what type of hunter Nostam is yet from that opening hand. Always one of the pain that I find when you're playing against a hunter, and just so many of the hunter cards are included in multiple types of hunter decks. But it does look like it'll be mid-range versus mid-range.
We can possibly see some type of hybrid hunter coming from Irony there. It's always difficult to know what type of hunter it is. Like back in the olden days, like even 2 or 3 months ago, it was very simple, very clean cut. We had face hunter, we had mid range hunter, and that was it. Then,
Yep.
then people began introducing hybrid hunter. Then we had Game King hunter, we had Chalky hunter, we had just so many different variations. And basically, all of these hunter decks they comprise of about 15 to 20 core cards, and then the 10 flex cards. It's just that hunter is so strong, no matter what cards you put in it. I feel.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like its early game mechanics allow you to play around with those mid and late game cards or how you're getting your damage sources pretty effectively. He's really lucky that was not a huffer. A rare thing to say, but I suppose this will probably die to the abusive sergeant damage anyways. In any case, the huffer would have died really easily to the Iron Beak Owl, so that would have been the worst case for him.
We do know from the production team that the secret is a freezing trap, so definitely
Yes.
something to keep track of.
So yeah, the huffer would have been frozen actually. Might have even been better. Yeah, with the hunter styles too, we see them like switching up their traps quite a bit, right? There's been a lot of people putting in double freezing, and then you can put things like snake trap. You can even put a snipe on. We see misdirect in the face hunters sometimes with explosive trap combos. There's just a lot of different craziness that can go on. That when you're in a hunter match like this and the deck hasn't been revealed yet, you're going to be questioning a lot. Like, what is that trap actually going to be here?
So this is actually kind of rare that you get to play a Houndmaster on 4. I haven't seen. I've seen Houndmaster in a lot of hunter decks lately, but it's actually very rare that this exact scenario happens.
Wow, that Unleash the Hounds draw was really fortunate.
So usually in this matchup, the only way you can come back from a disadvantaged position is with this exact combo, Knife Juggler into Unleash, and Nostam gets that exactly.
Yeah, like the Knife Juggler was actually about the worst juggles he could have asked for there, but well, that one was good. Just taking the freezing trap with the Unleash the Hounds, there was no way he was going to be able to handle that board otherwise, because the Shredder would have got frozen, and then the board from Irony was much better than Nostam's.
This is going to be looking to a pretty back and forth game. Even though I would say Irony had like the slight board advantage there, like his board was like just slightly weak. He didn't develop so much this turn, so now it's back in Nostam's favor in order to get back the game.
You might go for the Snake Trap here.
Yeah, that's actually a really funny thing. Snake Trap is probably out of the 3 main traps the least popular trap, but we've seen it 3 times already in the past 2 days. In Nostam's deck, in Osaka's deck, and also in Firebat's deck. So I'm actually wondering why that specific tech choice is so popular in our tournament today.
So, I mean, as Irony, when you see that trap go up, you have to know it's not freezing. There's no way you would play a freezing trap with the 1 health creatures on the board. It would just be a total waste. He still chooses to attack into the creature. He might have thought that it was explosive.
Well, he does have Unleash the Hounds, so he has an answer for that completely.
True. I guess that was all part of the plan.
The question is, do you go for face or do you actually trade? An argument can be made for going for face because you've already seen 1 Unleash the Hounds, and a lot of hunter decks these days, they only just run that 1 Unleash.
Yeah, I think face would have been a nice choice there, because he is up 5 health on Nostam as well, so taking that to a 10 health advantage would have been pretty enormous. In this case, 7 health, not the biggest difference in the world.
Yeah. This is actually one of those 100 games that's pretty back and forth, which I kind of rarely see. Usually it's one side gets a huge advantage and the other side can't deal with it. But this game is all about that Knife Juggler Unleash, which kind of stabilized the board. And also, it was about how Irony, on the turn after the Knife Juggler Unleash, he didn't have a really amazing follow-up.
Well, probably looking for Misha here. You just want to put up something in the way because Nostam has board control. It's actually going to choose not to play the Animal Companion. I think that's totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, if you just play the Animal Companion, you don't have too much to fill up the rest of your mana with. So, I think this play is probably very good.
There's quite a health deficit for Nostam still. He can't really put out much damage from his hand unless he gets lucky, and
Yeah.
he's gonna look to die next turn.
Yeah, Nostam technically does have a board lead, but if you're against like these two hounds, they're really difficult for Hunter to deal with. Hunter typically doesn't have really great AoE except for Unleash, which he's already used, or Explosive Trap, which I don't think you even run in this deck if you're running Snake Trap as well.
He has to kill both hounds here or he's gonna die, but I don't think you necessarily make that decision to kill the hounds. It looks like he's probably not going to.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate. He just has to hope that his opponent doesn't have anything. And I completely agree with this play. There's nothing really you can do here.
Yeah, you got the taunt, so you think like, okay, maybe I'm safe, but well, double kill command. There was no way to live. Even had he killed both hounds, that still would have been 9 damage with double kill command quick shot.
Pretty easy, clean-cut game, I'd say.
Yep.
Yeah. Although it was somewhat back and forth. I guess in the end, the early board lead that Irony got from basically R&B Gowling a mad scientist into a Hound Master, that's just too much value. And even with a Knife Juggler Unleash combo that Nostam was able to put out, it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, I mean, Nostam had the perfect answer to that board, but the Hound Master on turn 4 adds so many stats to the board compared to a normal 4-drop. A Hound Master's 11 stats, and 4 of those stats are charge stats, so it's a huge amount of pressure, plus he was already working with the trap advantage. It's just unlikely that the other hunter could take it back. About as close as you could expect it to get in that situation, though.
Yeah, but I don't think Nostam is too upset. Hunter is probably one of the strongest classes, if not the strongest class right now. And his Mech Shaman is going to be very weak to the Hunter anyway.
Yeah.
Nostam going to queue up with the Hunter again, but I think Irony's hand is almost perfect here. Like, he has the War Axe, and that's like the most important card you want early on.
Yep. Generally, I favor the Patron Warrior a little in the mid-range fight because the later creatures from the Hunter can get punished really easily by the Patron combo. So as long as you can get a single Patron combo together, it's normally enough to shut down the board. Often you'll have 10-ish health left as the Patron Warrior, but the Hunter just won't have a way to finish without anything on the board, so you can kind of pump them down after that point.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just stats-wise, it's 41 to 31, so that's about a 57% win rate for the Patron Warrior. But funnily enough, if you're running the more hybrid Hunter with these Abusive Sergeants and Arcane Golems, you have more of a chance to win, and it's about more 50-50 there. And I think that makes a lot of sense because the mid-range Hunter, at the end of everything, it has a hard time finishing the opponent off with just one kill command or perhaps, in addition to that, a quick shot to finish off the game. Whereas the hybrid Hunter has way more opportunities to finish it off with Arcane Golems in addition to those kill commands and quick shots. Unfortunately, though, it's not going to work out for Nostam with just a hero power on turn 2 and his hand clogged up with these 2 Arcane Golems.
I'm really surprised to see that Irony didn't coin the War Axe on the first turn. It would have prevented the 2 damage overall from the second attack from the Abusive Sergeant. But also, you'd think that normally the Hunter will have a 2-drop. So you coin the War Axe, you kill this creature. Overall, you're saving 2 health, and then you can kill the next creature they play as well, unless it's a Haunted Creeper. But he was right to do this, of course. There was no second creature, so he got to use his coin more effectively on a 3-drop instead.
Yeah, very rare that a hunter doesn't have a 2-drop. They run at least 6 of them typically with the knife jugglers, the mad scientists, the hunter creepers.
Just throwing those frothing berserkers into the mix, hoping that they can stick here. But this one should be fine to survive. It's unlikely that the Shredder gets 4 attack.
Yeah. Also, unless this oh, that's interesting. Unless this shredder dropped a 0 attack minion, he'll be able to clear it off. He'll be able
Or
to
the
clear off the
Noyatron.
frothing. Yeah.
Noyatron or shielded mini bots, some of the best creatures to come out of that Shredder, just because a Shredder is already very difficult to remove. So when you add that extra attack again, you're taking 3 attacks to clear off one card from the opponent. Um, well, this is looking really bad for the Patron Warrior, actually, based on Nostam's hand. To see just a straight damage lineup, you picture a Huffer out of that Animal Companion, and you've got charge damage, kill command. It's some pretty good lineups.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about how Irony's hand was really good because he opened up with a Fiery War Axe, but it actually, like, it wasn't amazing because Nostam missed a 2-drop, and it's kind of funny how that interaction works.
Yeah. And Huffer to the face. And that might be it. Nostam has to clear the board. Oh no, he can do it. He has to clear the board and armor up and or irony, sorry.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna be able to though. Like, you definitely expect an execute coming down, and if he executes, there's no possibility
Yeah.
of armoring up. Also, an unstable goal would have been good as well, but he's gonna choose to clear off the Lothep instead. And I think that's a very admirable decision because you can't really expect double Arcane Golem from your opponent at turn 7.
Yeah, Irony didn't see anything like that from Nostam last game either, so he was probably expecting a more standard mid-range list, and now he just got punished for it. I mean, that was a lot of damage, so he could have Whirlwind executed, traded, and armored up, and that would have been his play to survive, but the Acolyte was greedier, and in the end, the 2 health made the difference.
So pretty expected, both hunters taking wins. I mean, that is the current state
Yeah.
of Hearthstone right now. People aren't complaining too much about hunters lately. It's mostly like the patron hate. But in my honest opinion, I think in tournaments, Hunter is just doing so amazingly. And I would even say it's like the #1 deck.
Yeah, it's very consistent too. It's something that you know you can play to absolute perfection, and I think that's one of the most important things when you're coming into these tournaments of what deck am I going to be able to play to its full potential, and a hunter is there and it's giving you a good win rate, so might as well include it in the lineup, just get a good advantage out of that early win.
Hot form, am I convincing you enough yet? I know you typically don't like to use Hunter in your lineups, but
Oh,
I
the
mean,
mathematics don't lie, Monk. You do give
yeah,
me some good stats on that, so
results do speak, of course, for themselves.
yeah.
And but now we have a true Hearthstone, non-Hunter Hearthstone.
The hunters have both taken their wins already, so don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah, we might even have a Rogue Mirror. How exciting would that be? Whoa.
Rogue versus Shaman. We do see a shade from Irony, which is pretty unusual tech.
Yeah, it's definitely unusual. We saw Shade a lot in like the beginning of Hearthstone, or beginning of when Rogue first came out with, or rather when Naxxramas came out with Shade, and people were just using Shade because it was a pretty good 3-drop, and you could do a lot of combos like Cold Blood with it. But these days, I guess the rationale is you want to use it with Tinker's Sharpsword Duel.
Yeah, I like the shade a lot in Rogue, especially because so a lot of classes that could play a shade, the problem is you need to do other things on that turn, right? You need to be preparing a Mana Tide Totem, or you need to be playing Animal Companion. There's just things that are filling up that 3-drop spot, whereas a Rogue has a lot of big tempo plays, so they can invest in a creature they might not use and then still be fine to take back the board in a big swing on a later turn.
I like how your default 3-drop play was Mana Tide Totem. It just
As
shows you. It
yeah,
shows you how much shaman you play.
yeah, nah, and definitely not a mech shaman either, right?
Yeah.
I was
We can.
playing some mid-range shaman yesterday, so my mind was probably there. Well, what other three jobs now? You pressured me. Who else could use a shade? A priest would be playing Deathlord.
Yeah. Shade was actually played before in kind of the Undertaker priest style, with massive buffs.
Oh yeah, I've seen the buff style priest use it really, really well. I like the shade a lot. It's like a creature that the player is saving till that tactical moment when they feel it's the most important play.
Mhm. Now I feel like this is going to be the point of no return though for Nostam. And I really liked how he basically took an extra 3 damage on the previous turn in order to get an additional minion off the Vibe Teacher. And because Nostam, as the Mech Shaman, he doesn't have any AoE in his deck, this is going to be an almost impossible board to come back from.
Yeah, that's a really big board. And the problem with a board like this is you want to use all your damage on face, so he's going to get punished by never clearing something like the shade. He's actually thinking about it now, but you have such specific amounts of damage in a shaman deck like this. To attack the creature is going to be a bad line of play in almost every situation, but it will kill him in about 2 turns
Yeah.
otherwise.
Well, the problem is if you don't kill off the shade will trade into your Whirling Zap-O-Matic. And I think Nostam is just weighing what are the chances he has either a Sap or an Eviscerate to kill off my Whirling Zap-O-Matic? Because if he doesn't have any of them, which we know Irony doesn't, then he's going to have to trade off like the Violet Teacher and a token into the Zap-O-Matic.
I don't see you thinking about trading into the like I would see killing the shade just because it's going to grow and get bigger. The rogue has so many ways to deal with a 5/4 creature that you'd probably be like, all right, he's going to kill it anyways, but do I want to slow the game down so that I can draw more cards like a Doomhammer later to finish off the rogue in a better style? But in this case, it is a very, very expensive trade for the rogue.
Yeah, so Nostam seeing that trade, he's definitely happy with his decision to kill off the shade.
Yep.
Well, here's an interesting choice: Mechanical Yeti. We actually don't see the
I got
+2 pilot shredders.
okay. Seems like there was some internet trouble there. Yeah, the Mechanical Yeti is a really interesting choice in it. Is it me or you?
Oh, I can hear you fine.
Okay. The Mechanical Yeti is an interesting choice in a deck like this, but I know Nostam's deck, and it runs just a whole lot of 4-drops. It seems like the 4-mana curve is like the last place where he actually wants creatures. There's like a Lotheb on top as well, but it's mostly like 2 Fire Guards, 2 Pilot Shredders, 2 Mechanical Yetis. You just hit that 4 so hard, and then you push for pure damage after that point.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I know in the original version it had 2 Fire Guard Destroyers and 2 Shredders, but he definitely could have added more 4-drops. And I think it's really smart in Mech Shaman to add a lot of 4-drops because the problem with Fire Guard Destroyer in typical mid-range Shaman is you really want to hit your 5-drop as well. Like Azure Drakes and the Lothebs are pretty important. Whereas in the Mech Shaman, you basically just have Doomhammers and the Lothebs. And you're perfectly okay with doing 4-drop into 4-drop as Mech Shaman.
Well, you're definitely a little scared as Irony, because Shaman does have so much burst potential. Like a Doomhammer pickup with double Rockbiter would just kill you next turn, so I think healing here is pretty safe. There's not a lot of other great plays anyways. SI Agent into second SI Agent would add the most damage to the board.
You know, I'm just waiting for Blizzard to come out with a charging mech. Then Power Mace would get a pretty huge buff.
Yeah, that would, because the mechs especially take off so fast. I could picture the Mech Warper, double Mech Warper into some big charge mech. Be insane.
Okay, like you said, there's going to be a lot of 4-drops.
Yeah, that's definitely not what Nostam wants at this point, though. He just wants damage. Like, he wants a second Lava Burst, or... and he's forced to trade.
Yeah, a little unfortunate.
Looks pretty rough for the shaman. Anytime you're at a health deficit against the opponent and you're having to trade your damage in, it's not a lot of ways that you're gonna return the board. This Fireguard Destroyer, I guess technically it's gonna live. He could play Fan of Knives into oil and then trade the creature. Reversing switch into oil.
Reversing switch into double SI, possibly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he could double SI and then trade the Healbot. The oil would not complete the trade now, but you could play oil and SIHN. You could honestly just push face damage here. I mean, you're at 23, and you know that one of those cards in Nostam's hand is a spare part, so the max damage is Doomhammer Rockbiter, which is not going to put you at any risk. Yeah, I like that play a lot. And that should wrap up the game. Typically, the Rogue is something that Shaman would love to prey on, but Irony just had a really good hand for this, especially with the heal. Then it swung the entire game where Nostam couldn't go for face anymore.
Yeah. Nostam got a little lucky with the double taunts that he can put out on the board, but it's not going to matter from the SI agent.
Yep, Nostam scratching his head saying, I'm at 1 health. Maybe there's a tiny chance that I can still do it here.
Yeah, I mean, if he can just survive here, top deck a Doomhammer, he would win the game. Possibly. Yeah.
Seems like he would still lose because the Rogue could at least trade both creatures, and the Doomhammer Double Rockbiter is 16. But
yeah, it's a good point.
You would hold your breath and see if it works somehow.
Well, that's it. Unfortunately, Nostam's... Did you see that hair flip that Nostam just gave?
Yep, common trait.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, Nostam's signature deck is kind of failing him here, but I think against Patron Warrior, which I would assume Irony is bringing, it's going to do a pretty good job.
Yeah, both of Nostam's remaining decks seem like they are going to be really strong against Patron Warrior. The Rogue, of course, we've seen that matchup yesterday, and the Rogue did do pretty reasonable against Patron Warrior. It's something that we know has a good chance, and Mech Shaman is just very, very strong. You punish the Patron Warrior before they can get their momentum started, so...
Wow, look at this hand. So, we're waiting to see Irony's hand, and we're just especially waiting to see if there's a Fire War Axe in it. That's going to make all the difference. And no, there isn't.
Yeah, this is it's going to be pretty painful. I feel like it's almost over already, just looking at an opening hand like that. We have Mech Warper into Whirling Zap-O-Matic. The biggest decision for Nostam is going to be, does he play the Whirling Zap-O-Matic or the Mech Warper first?
I like the Zap-O-Matic because you haven't seen, like, if Irony had a War Axe, then he would definitely have coined it out the previous turn. So you can kind of assume that there's no War Axe.
I like the Zap-O-Matic as well. It will get killed here in a number of ways that Irony can choose from. So he can actually clear the board completely if he wanted to. And just losing the Zap-O-Matic now, you're not going to have any pressure later. But technically this is a good play because playing the Mech Warper next turn would be off curve where you're not using the extra mana and you want to play a Power Mace anyways.
Yeah. Not bad, I would say. Oh, double Whirlwind. Okay. So, Irony now is saving the Inner Rage plus Execute in order to clear off something on turn 4, for example, a Fireguard Destroyer. He also has the Death Bite, and in combination with Inner Rage, it'll clear off a lot of things on the next turn as well.
Yep. I mean, the Doomhammer is a great pickup. It's exactly what you want in this match. You just want unstoppable face damage. But for the Warriors' end of things, to not have a War Axe yet still clear the early board feels like a pretty good position.
Yeah, the police are coming.
Yeah, they are.
Here. Who would you say is in a better position at this point? It's kind of hard to tell, even though like Irony was able to kind of clear off the board, but he's dealing with a lot of weapon damage coming up in the next few turns.
I'd give a decent edge to the Shaman here just because he has the Doomhammer. If he had creatures in his hand, then it wouldn't be nearly as good. But Doomhammer is always the dream, and I know Nostam plays 2 of them, so you can actually work through a whole Doomhammer in a match like this and just continuously go face.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So Irony is playing from Korea, so I was actually a little bit worried about that rope that he might have disconnected, but it seems everything is fine. Irony basically had the choice of the Death Spite or Armor Smith, but I like this choice here. And even an Earthshock, this is pretty all in. Although I will have to say Earthshock, it's not like absolutely valuable in the matchup. It does deny some Acolyte draws, but you just want to be more aggressive here. And almost the armor gain from the Armor Smith is worth more.
So it looks like once again Irony can clear the board, and this is helping him out a lot. I would definitely clear that if I could, because you don't know what his last card is, but seeing a Mech Shaman with 1, oh man. Chooses to save it and take the 4 face damage, which is going to hurt quite a bit.
Yeah, and I would have to agree with you, especially since the Mech Shaman, he doesn't have any card draw in his deck, so if he only has 1 card in his hand at that moment, that's probably all he's going to have for the remainder of the match.
Yeah, and he was sitting on Gnomish Inventor for next turn anyway, so he knew that, like, Irony knew he could pick up more stuff, whereas the Shaman wouldn't. I don't know, he'll probably do the execute play now, and then it's like, what was he saving the coin for, which feels a little bad, but it's better now than never. He does get to save the Inner Rage this way, because the weapon will activate the execute.
And now we're in a kind of an interesting position. It's a lot of damage.
Man. That is exactly what you wanted to see. Just get some more damage in there. The warrior, of course, with no taunts or anything like that. It might be almost over. We need like 1 or 2 more damage top decks instead of creatures.
Yeah, and that's not even useful. Like, you can't even slam anything here. You'd be slamming your Gnomish Inventor, I guess, and what good is that going to do? A lot of it, I feel like, is going to be if Irony runs Shield Block in his hand, because I feel like that's what you need. You've already used up 1 Armor Smith, and to be honest, the second Armor Smith won't even be that amazing.
No, it won't, because there's no creatures on the board. I mean, I think the Emperor there was a really tempting play, but he knows he has to armor, because the Doomhammer damage eventually just kills him. Like, that Doomhammer on its own will kill him, let alone the extra damage to follow it up. Okay, there's a 4-drop, and you know, drawing creatures is still technically useful here, but that's not what Nostam wants at this point. He wants to just have Lava Burst, Crackle, anything he can find for straight up face damage.
Meanwhile, some Patron Warriors do run Harrison Jones, so that could be another out for him. Fortunately, that's not it.
Yeah, that's true. A Harrison would be absolutely game-breaking.
So I guess you can trade in Taskmaster, but then what is the question?
I like frothing, and then you Inner Rage the Shredder, trade, and then you coin armor. Because if you set the frothing up, like, you need to actually kill the shaman somehow. You will just eventually die. So you set the frothing up and you force him to trade or start taking 7+ damage a turn.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also like using up your 0 mana spells as well. I feel like against aggressive decks, you really want to use your spells that cost 0. And that's essentially why Preparation is so good against aggro as well.
Yep. Yeah, those 2 Inner Rages look really awkward now that he didn't choose to use them before. Oh, he's going to go for the Taskmaster, though. Saving the coin for a rainy day. Also might not kill the creature.
Ooh.
Right, well, didn't make a huge difference then, I guess. That is definitely lethal. That's doing 11 just from hand, plus the 5 already in play for 15 damage.
If he didn't top deck that Leroy, I was actually wondering what that Patient Assassin would have attacked. Like, do you really just want to do 1 damage to face with a Patient Assassin, or would you like rather kill a War Song?
I think because Irony was on even-numbered health, he probably would have traded for the War Song, because then something like Rockbiter and stuff, it's all even numbers out of the Doomhammer, so then you know you're setting it up properly. But yeah,
very nice point.
Mech Shaman takes the game from Patron Warrior, pretty expected, I think. There was like he could have gained Irony could have gained 4 extra health, which I think technically would have let him survive that turn if he had killed a mech warper. But still, there was a lot of damage that could have been drawn.
Okay, this is gonna be good. So
Oh
I
wow!
saw Nostam recently. He posted a guide on the competitive Hearthstone Reddit on aggro rogue. So this is kind of like the turn 6 rogue or the backspace rogue a lot of people were talking about a year ago. But Nostam, I guess, is bringing it back.
I remember seeing this deck a lot in the original Hearthstone when Miracle Rogue was really popular. This was a deck that could punish Miracle Rogue because it started faster and rogues didn't have a lot of ways to defend themselves. Patron Warrior has a very similar flavor where the Patron Warrior feels like they don't have things to defend themselves with taunts and stuff, so you can just put up some really early creatures and run them over with burst damage.
Yeah, but if Patron Warrior draws amazingly, like if Irony gets an unstable ghoul right now, that would be just like devastating.
Yeah, you're looking for a whirlwind or a ghoul. Probably mulliganed not for this occasion though. I didn't actually catch entirely what he mulliganed, but you don't really plan to keep a whirlwind against rogue. So the people that come up against Nostam in the later rounds will have this information already. But Irony is seeing this firsthand.
A little unfortunate for him. Do you just throw down a war song here? It feels like you just want to throw anything that
Yeah,
tempers
maybe.
the aggression of rogue.
Oh man, feels bad to play a war song as a 2/3, but
It does, but on the other hand, Nostam actually can't deal with this easily at all.
yeah, and it's super threatening that you could charge things like a Taskmaster next turn, so he might be inclined to kill it. Okay, well,
Definitely hoping for a backstab here.
Patron Warrior has a lot of draws off of something like that to help him in this situation.
Okay, that feels really bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great play by Irony to throw that out there.
And now it looks like Irony is in full control here. Like, I'm not too familiar with this aggro rogue deck, but it seems to play pretty similarly to aggro paladin, which I think most people would consider just a better deck overall.
I think I saw Nostam's deck list for this and that he had removed Shadow Steps, and very often you see Shadow Steps in a deck like this with the Cold Light Oracles and the Arcane Golems, but he was playing just mostly weapon damage with the double oil, double poison, flurries, and cold bloods, so he's looking for like one really big 15 damage-ish charge turn on like turn 8 to finish the game. So it could be that the warrior clears the entire board but still manages to lose just because the life total isn't high enough.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you're saying that Nostam still has a pretty good chance?
Oh yeah. Well, he's got 2 oils in his hand, so that alone is an enormous amount of face damage.
I also think I think Nostam would actually rate this as his best deck because this is the deck that he used to climb to Legend with last season, and he finished on N8 on the North American server last season with rank 33 with this deck. So definitely a lot of confidence going into this match.
There is the Flurry, which could easily dominate this patron board. Although not quite. It would have to wait one more turn just for mana considerations anyways. But without a Flurry, something like these patrons could shut down the game so early that the rogue doesn't have time to get a proper burst set up. Because,
Even,
I mean, we look
yeah,
at the patrons with 6 patrons, that's like 18 damage a turn. You're dead in 2 turns, which is very quick.
even if you flurry though, it's like even if you draw a flurry, it's not enough here.
Yeah, it would be for next turn.
So
Oh, man.
he actually just has to set up the flurry. I mean, sapping one of these patrons isn't going to do you any good.
There's a lot of burst damage there, but I think the mana is the biggest problem, that the Patron Warrior will just kill you before you can actually play all this damage. There's like, what, 2 oils for 14 damage from the weapon alone, just from the oils. And 2 Arcane Golems and a Cold Blood for another 12. Like, not even counting the oils hitting something like the Arcane Golem, but you just won't have time to play all of that.
I don't even think Irony has to think much about the rest of this game. It just seems so over at this point.
Is it though? Like, he's not
Like,
gaining any health here.
If you just throw down the ghoul though, how is he going to get past this?
Looking for that Blade Flurry draw. The ghoul will end up actually making the patron board a little weaker. Will only spawn one extra patron, but it will kill two of them. No, okay. That helps him a lot to trade, though.
So again, looking for the Blade Flurry top deck, but not getting it just yet. I believe the only card draw in this deck are the 2 Cold Light Oracles, so no card draw remaining in the deck, and that's going to be really a big problem as well.
So there's going to be 18 on the board. Nostam's not dead yet, but he will die next turn, so that means he has to kill the warrior next turn. There's 4 damage set up. He needs 12. He does have, he has the damage right now. There's the Harrison, of course. There's a bunch of options to limit this damage. I think Harrison would seal the game.
Yeah, so I see a max of 12 damage.
Yep.
Which is just unfortunately not going to be enough. There's also no spells in Nostam's deck that are 0 mana and can deal that extra damage. I believe there's 6 remaining left.
Of course, this will decide the series. It was 2-2, so this game made a really huge impact on what their positions are going to be like. Irony will only have to win one more round to get through to the semifinals, whereas Nostam now will go down to the losers match and have to pick up 2 rounds in a row, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be quite difficult against a lineup of Irony, Trump, and Powder. So definitely he has his work cut out for him, even though he has made it pretty far in feature tournaments before.
Yep. Doesn't get any easier. Each series is its own series. Nostam does fall here to Irony. It was a pretty well-played game by Irony, though. I have to give that to him, considering the shock I'm sure he felt when he noticed 2 Argent Squires and an Annoyatron hit the board. Playing that Warsong Commander out was just what he needed, called him on it, and it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, on the other hand, though, I have to give a lot of props to Nostam for bringing decks that aren't the most popular right now. I mean, Mech Shaman, it's getting more popular, but still it's a little under the radar. And his Aggro Rogue, that was just amazing to see, and I really hope he gets at least 1 win tonight. We're going to take a short break right now, but when we come right back, we're going to come back with none other than Trump versus Powder. We'll see you then.